Welcome back, everybody. This is Rafa coming to you with Mystic Times once again. I'm very happy to have you guys join one more time for this uh, adventure that I've been calling everything that I do here, because for me it's such a pleasure to be doing this for a very long time. As I've told before, I felt so alone and so like uh, misunderstood or not understood at all, by my context or the people around me, etc. And podcasts was something that really they the different podcasts that I listened to during that period were like companionship, and the podcast hosts and the guests were like sort of like friends for me during that period. And finally deciding to start my own podcast was a beautiful step for me in the right direction. I really love communicating, and everything that every woo woo and weird and esoteric and fantastic topic that we've been covering here on the show are so dear and near to my heart. So today I have a very unique and fantastic gem that I'm gonna share with you guys. Um, we've talked about spirituality, we've talked about UFOs, we've talked about uh, what else? Time and timelines and what is time. We've talked about ancient civilizations. We've talked about so many things, and I think one of the maybe one of the central even things, or the base, the we've been kind of lacking context in a way, is what I'm trying to say. We so today I have this very special guest. Her name is Debbie Solaris. I'm gonna bring her on in just a second, but I want to give this brief context about the context that I think is kind of missing sometimes in our community. Let's say we talk about so much, but we many times think about it just in human terms, and in terms of a lifetime. We might think, of course, about the spirit and where we come from, what is the true nature of ourselves. But there is, apart from that, there is this aspect that is super interesting that I've been investigating a little, and getting some information from my own explorations into the Akashic records, and that is the idea of the galactic history, is what I think Debbie calls it. Um, and it might sound even more woo-woo than many than many other subjects, but to be honest, we've had here Jim McCarthy from the Law of One, and their material, spans stuff that is very close or similar to what Debbie is gonna talk to us about today. So I know that people watching this will find this interesting, and I have planned many pointers and topics that I would like to cover with you. And today we have 2 hours, so I'm really excited about this conversation with Debbie. First of all, if you guys find this interesting, or if you like this topic, please like the show, like the video, share it around, and subscribe for more stuff like this in the future. And go ahead, and there's many different playlists I've been compiling in the channel, with dividing it by topics, etc. So just go check that out after you watch this. But with no further ado, Debbie Solaris, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me on, Rafa. It's great to meet you and be on your show and connect with your listeners.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to have you. I really liked our pre-show conversation.
Yeah,
You reminded me of the whole passion that I have behind the hosting of this show. So that's why I wanted to talk to that at the start. And uh, you know, so the idea of galactic history. Before we get to that, I would like, if you can give us a little background on yourself, and tell us how you like your origin story and eventually how you got to become like interested in this information and eventually also how you got to I don't know, maybe we can talk about it later, like how you get this information and from where. So yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's a great starting question. But so I always tell this story in the context of being a very ordinary person. I was very unawakened, just living my ordinary human life for, 50 years. And uh, so I'm kind of a relative latecomer to the whole spiritual movement because I didn't really awaken until I was, I think, a month or two before I turned 50. But it seemed almost like a timely occurrence. But so my background is, I worked in the public health field for a lot of years. I came from a Roman Catholic family that was a military family. So, we dealt with, things that were very kind of 3D, just, very basic. I had a interesting upbringing in that, I traveled a lot when I was a child, but regardless of that, I'm also a Navy veteran. So I spent 6 years in the U.S. Navy. I was a hospital corpsman and then transitioned into the environmental health field, and I worked in that field for 30 years. I'm coming in with a very kind of ordinary, straight-laced kind of background. Uh, Things started shifting for me. I think once I started dating my current partner, Terry. So Terry was always really interested in the paranormal and UFOs and, ghosts and, all the paranormal stuff. And he would, read magazines about UFOs. And so that was my first exposure really to, the ufology genre. But I was very skeptical. I wasn't really a believer for a long time. And even after, I was with Terry, I still didn't really believe in UFOs. I thought there was some, rational explanation for why people were seeing these crafts in the sky, so I was very skeptical. But that all changed in 2012 when I had not just one, but two extraterrestrial contact experiences, which was totally out of the blue. I didn't really, never in a million years thought I would ever be a person that would have these kind of experiences. And the first one happened in May of 2012. I sent out a prayer out to the universe asking for a help for planet Earth, and thought, because I was concerned about the state of, of our planet. I was very concerned. Things seemed like they were going in a not so great direction. So, because I have a Roman Catholic background, I believe in God and I believe in, I guess, angels and things like that. So, I was reaching out to higher dimensional beings for assistance. And at the last minute, I decided to include galactic brothers and sisters. I don't know where that came from, but I just decided, hey, might as well send it out to everybody. And said that prayer and then forgot about it. 2 weeks later, I went to sleep and I had a out of body experience. I'm pretty sure it was out of body. I don't think I was physically on board this craft, but I found myself on board an extraterrestrial starship and had spent some time on this ship with extraterrestrial beings. The ship was very large, as far as I could tell, because I was in the inside of the ship. It was city-sized. It was huge. And there was quite a few different extraterrestrial beings on board the ship, but the ones that I was interacting with the most were Arcturians from Arcturus. At least that's what they told me. So when I encountered these beings, they definitely didn't look human. They looked very alien. So I knew they weren't from Earth, but they didn't look like gray aliens, so I knew they were from, probably some other star system, and I was able to telepathically communicate with them. And I asked a lot of questions. They answered a lot of my questions, and then because I asked a lot of questions about why are things the way they are here on Earth? Why is there so much suffering and adversity on this planet? And are things going to hell in a handbasket? I mean, so and of course the first question I asked them was why did they bring me on board the ship? Because I'm nobody special. I'm just ordinary human being. And the answer they gave me was very interesting. They said that I was part of their family, that I was actually an Arcturian being choosing to have a human experience in order to fulfill a mission. And they kind of filled me in. They didn't give me all the details, but they gave me kind of a general idea of my mission. And, they told me that genetically, I have connections to Arcturus as well as, spiritually. So, or, on a soul level. So it wasn't just soul related. Even my physical family had genetics from Arcturus. So it was really kind of different and interesting. And then I also interacted with other types of beings on board the ship. And it felt like I was there for a long time. Like it felt like I was there for maybe not months, but for several days. But in actuality, I was only gone for a night, so it was like after. So eventually I came to and I was back in my room, like trying to figure out what the heck happened. Things were so real when I had this experience that I knew it wasn't a dream. So it wasn't like a lucid dream. It was very, very real. When you're in the higher realms, when you're in the higher dimensions, details are so much sharper. There's so much more clarity. I mean, you see auras around things. The colors are more brilliant. So I knew this was a different reality. It wasn't just one of my, crazy dreams. So I noticed after I had this experience that I was getting massive downloads of galactic information. I mean, just on astronomy, on star systems, star races, galactic history, galactic wars. And I didn't know where this stuff was coming from, because I never read any of this kind of thing. And so I was thinking I was going crazy. I thought, okay, I'm losing it. So I started taking a lot of spiritual classes and started, I guess for the most part, started doing my own research, just to try to figure out what it was I was seeing all the time in these visions. I was just getting like massive downloads of, information. The other thing I noticed is that my extrasensory perception increased dramatically, where, before I was just an ordinary person, had no special skills. And then all of a sudden I was reading people's auras. I was seeing UFOs all the time. I was interdimensionally traveling spontaneously. I mean, I was just having all kinds of crazy spiritual experiences. I mean, it was just, one crazy experience after another for about 2 to 3 years. And I do want to add that I did have a second experience on board that same ship, but it was in December of the same year, 2012. And I didn't interact with Arcturians. I interacted with a couple of Pleiadian beings that were on board the same ship. And that visit was shorter, and it seemed like it was more personal, like they were sharing more information about like people like my father who had passed, and other people in my family. So it was a little bit more personal of a visit than the first visit. But after that, I was having a lot of crazy experiences, interaction with extraterrestrial beings. I was seeing UFOs all the time. Like I said, at first I thought I was going crazy. I didn't talk about it I didn't talk about my experience with, except for just maybe 2 or 3 really close people, because I thought I would be ridiculed or called crazy, or, so, just like a lot of us when we awaken, we kind of question it. But as I started taking more spiritual classes and I started getting more connected with the spiritual community here in Colorado, I live just south of Denver. I started realizing that, maybe there is something to all this stuff. Maybe there's a reason why I had these experiences. What got me started on the Akashic Records path was totally by accident. So I never set out to be an Akashic reader or an Akashic guide of sorts. I was just taking random spiritual classes, and I was getting downloads of information about specific people. Like I would just meet a person and know immediately, like, oh, they had lifetimes in the Pleiades, or oh, this person has a Celtic warrior as an ancestor. I mean, it's just kind of random, kind of crazy information. And so I was asking one of my spiritual teachers, where am I getting this information from? Because it seems like it correlates, and she said, well, I think you're getting them from the Akashic Records. So then around 2014, I started taking Akashic reading courses, and found that, oh, I seem to have a knack for doing this kind of thing. And then I was still working full time. So I worked for the public health department in Colorado Springs. And I was doing this kind of Akashic reading thing on the side. And like you, I had a little podcast for a while. So, that kind of started, I think, in 2017, I think. But in the meantime, I was still kind of doing this undercover. So I wasn't really promoting myself that much. I would do readings for people, kind of like as a side gig, but because I still had a full-time job. But then eventually, I guess word about me got around, the spiritual community in Colorado, and somebody had asked me, because I guess they found out I had an extraterrestrial contact experience. So this is kind of how everything started, as far as my public persona. So they asked me, hey, do you want to talk on a panel of people that had ET contact experience? And initially I told her no, I wasn't interested, because I was afraid to be being ridiculed. And she kind of talked me into it. So I reluctantly said, okay, I'll do it. And everybody was amazed, by my story, and they were amazed at the information I was sharing. So I was asked to do a presentation on galactic history at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And then that's when kind of, the ball started rolling. Okay. So that's when I kind of shifted from being a private citizen to, now being, part of the spiritual community in Colorado. So then I started doing presentations all across, the Front Range at Colorado. And eventually, and I was still doing Akashic readings. Eventually, I did retire from my full-time job. So I retired in 2019 and started doing this full-time. And in 2019, that was when I was first invited to be a guest on the Beyond Belief show on Gaia. And then I've been on Gaia several times since. So they keep calling me back. So that's pretty much my story in a nutshell. As far as the galactic part of things, I found that unlike a lot of Akashic readers, that I had the ability, or I guess the interest of I guess searching or looking at the galactic records. So that's what I think makes my spiritual practice unique, in that I go beyond the Earth records. I look at records from various star systems, and a lot of us right now, including me and you, a lot of us are star seeds. We're not originally from Earth. So a lot of people are awakening to the fact that, hey, I'm not just this ordinary Earth person. I'm actually here having kind of a human experience on planet Earth. And so a lot of people come to me wanting to, I guess, reconnect with who they truly are, so that's kind of started my whole practice. And I've done various, I guess, talks and presentations on galactic history, within the last few years. And now I'm continuing to do that because I think it's important for us to know that, we're not just this isolated little planet, with, just a few little human beings on it. We're connected to this greater galactic family. And there's a whole purpose for us being here. There's a big mission that a lot of us have come here to accomplish. So that's my main goal, is to get all of us reconnected to that. So that's pretty much my story in a nutshell. But thank you for allowing me to share that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
It's a very, very wow kind of story, especially something that awoke in your human life.
Yeah.
So not late is not the word, but I mean, like
I think it was timely. I think
yeah,
it was,
yeah.
I think if I had awakened sooner, I wouldn't have been as effective. I don't know. I mean, I think it was, the timing was perfect. Because it's been like 10 years now. Now I just turned 60, and I don't know, I'm still doing this work,
Yeah.
it's like consumes my whole life, so I have to say I'm very happy for the journey. It's been a good journey. But thank you for allowing me to share that.
Yeah, sure. I don't mean to say late as in untimely, but
Yeah.
like for for other people, maybe they might think that it needs to happen when you're younger, and that, or perhaps people closer to your age might think it's not going to happen for me, or it's
Or it's too
the
late,
boat
or
has
yeah.
already sailed or whatever.
Yeah.
But your example and your story talks a little bit to that
Never too
not
late.
losing faith,
Yeah.
that any
No,
day,
it's never too late.
yeah, any day you might just go to sleep as normal and suddenly be on a ship, and who knows what
Yeah, who knows? You might
abilities
be
awaken.
waking up a totally different person,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have to say, after I had that first experience on the ship, I was not the same person when I
Yeah.
woke up. I was totally awake. I mean, I totally knew that
Yeah.
things would be different from now on. And it didn't mean that I didn't suffer. I mean, I still went through
Yeah.
bad times afterwards. I mean, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then I had a series of illnesses, and worked in a very toxic work environment that I, eventually, decided to leave. But so it doesn't mean that, everything gets hunky dory, after you have a extraterrestrial contact experience. But I think it just puts you on the path of your true mission, So, but yeah, that's a good point, that it's never too late, So it doesn't mean that, if you're not on your, if you're not aligned with your highest purpose by the time you're X amount of years, it doesn't mean that you missed a boat, because I certainly never expected myself to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, sorry to hear about those those um, those tough times that you went through.
Oh yeah, no, I went through some tough times.
Yeah.
It was not an easy awakening. I think all of us go through the dark night of the soul, and
Yeah.
then there's a lot of stuff that we have to clear, so a lot of karmic stuff we have to work through. So, so I wasn't immune to any of that.
Yeah, it seems to be part of our requirement here on Earth.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you brought an interesting point that I want us to touch on, this idea of us being, or some of us, or maybe all of us, who knows, being from somewhere else. For some time, the idea of starseeds felt for me until it kind of clicked. It felt
Mm-hmm.
so like, oh my God, wishful thinking, or
Oh yeah,
people that
totally.
just
Yeah.
wanna, they don't want to be here, so they are fantasizing all this other thing. But slowly different parts of the idea started falling into place, and one of them, I think, is very important, is you mentioned God. It's this idea that the physical is not the only thing that exists, or that
Mm-hmm.
matters, but there is this spiritual side of us. So I usually call it this other half of the world that we are sometimes unaware of, and even after our awakening, there might be times where we kind of forget about it a little, or
Mm-hmm.
or 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 put it kind of to the side, because I know that the physical life sometimes requires a little bit more of our hands-on attention or whatever.
Oh, totally.
but
It's easy to
but
get distracted.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
luckily there's usually signs throughout the days, throughout
Mm-hmm.
the years, that kind of uh, uh, kind of a snooze, from
Yeah,
the alarm
exactly.
clock,
Yeah.
that kind of don't let you completely forget about it. And especially when you make spirituality and faith the center of your life. That's something that I
Mm-hmm.
learned from my teachers. uh,
Yeah.
I don't want to bore you with my story, because it's long also, just like yours.
Yeah.
And I want this more to be about the material that you share. But
Yeah, totally.
eventually,
Yeah.
if we have another conversation, I might tell you a little bit more about it. But
Yeah.
I had some teachers from the Buddhist and Taoist tradition, and from then I learned that they have these 5 elements of Chinese philosophy, and
Yeah.
the element that goes in the center, according to them, is connected to faith.
Mm-hmm.
And putting that in the center uh, is what holds you up. Every time you forget, every time you
Mm-hmm.
go through the dark times, through the dark nights of the soul, through difficult transitions in life, uh, keeping that faith in the center is what has helped me personally, and that's what I learned from them. And putting it into practice, it has been such a blessing for me to have that information. And
Totally.
when we're talking about being from, for example, from Arcturus or from the Pleiades,
Mm-hmm.
for some time it was like, that's so crazy that a person would be saying that. But
Yeah.
then,
Yeah. Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
and even having a spiritual education, let's say, for myself, it still
Mm-hmm.
felt weird, because I was still thinking that those people were thinking about it, and maybe people do, but that
Yeah.
people were thinking about it still from a material way. And so, like,
Yeah.
it's like those people were saying, I am a blue alien from whatever place. And that's what felt weird. But then when I started to look at it from this spiritual lens, I thought,
Mm-hmm.
okay, sure. One of my, for example, we could say one of this person's incarnations is a
Mm-hmm.
human, another of their incarnations is from this other galaxy or whatever.
Mm.
And
Yeah. Or this
it
other
doesn't,
planet area. Yeah.
it,
Totally.
it wouldn't contradict the idea of the spirit and the soul, because what this person is mostly, or behind all that, is still the soul. But so, long story short, my question is, would you say that when somebody, for example, you said, correct me if I misunderstood, but you said
Okay.
that you understood your own um, starseed journey as
Mm-hmm.
being from Arcturus yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
would you say that means, perhaps in your case or in general, would you say that means
Mm-hmm.
that, for example, that soul, which we are behind all of the masks and the appearances of
Mm-hmm.
the physical, that soul first incarnated for the first time into matter in that place? Would you say it's something like that?
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit more complex than that because this is my belief, and it's probably a belief that you share as well, that we're all soul shards of source. So we all started off, being, you know aspects of source, going through various experiences. And so my understanding, at least with my own, soul journey, was that as a, I guess, etheric soul, I probably chose to have my first physical incarnations in Arcturus. So, I recognize Arcturus as being home base, for my journey. But even beyond that, I'm an etheric soul that, was once a part of Source, and a lot of us actually have had incarnations, not just in one or two systems, but in a lot of systems, so a lot of times when I'm doing a galactic Akashic reading for someone, I'm telling them you're a multi-dimensional soul, and you've had experiences in various systems, so I'm trying to give them like a linear process, because that's what we understand here on Earth, but the process is really not very linear at all. I mean, we have various incarnations in various dimensions, simultaneous to each other, so, because time is not linear in the higher realms. But yeah, I would say that a lot of times, I might, just to give somebody a sense of identity, like, hey, you've had a lot of lifetimes in the Pleiades, or you had a lot of, lifetimes in Andromeda, so it gives them a sense of identity. But in actuality, we've had incarnations in quite a few different places, because we're souls that are we're soul shards of Source. The Source, and as souls that are soul shards of Source, our main mission is to have as many experiences as possible. So it makes sense that, hey, I want to incarnate in different systems. I want to see what it's like in this system or in that system. It's part of our soul evolution. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I see it, and that's how I perceive things from, the various thousands of readings I've done for people throughout the last few years. So but yeah, I would say we're all soul shards of Source. We're all connected, we're all one, so but yeah, as far as starseed origination, it's usually the star system that you've had your first our physical incarnation in, or your first, I would say, identity connected with it. So for me, I consider myself an Arcturian starseed, but I know I've had incarnations in the Pleiades, I've had incarnations in Sirius, I had incarnations in Orion, so I've been a lot of places, so there's aspects of me that I feel that, okay, I have some Orion aspects, or, I have some Pleiadian aspects, that in addition to being an Arcturian starseed.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great sorry. It's a great description that you gave.
Yeah.
It answers, or yeah, it answers my question definitely.
Mhm.
And it's kind of in line of what my intuition was with the thing. It's we could say that when one identifies with being a starseed from a particular place, it's something like, okay, perhaps it's your first incarnation, or it's the incarnation where you chose the mission to continue going all over the place, something like that. It's like where
Exactly. Yeah.
a kind of a more central identity for you,
Exactly.
or an identity that's closest to the soul realm, or something like that. So
Yeah, exactly.
it
Yeah.
might be a little bit different for everybody, but it's okay. It gives a lot of context, and it makes sense for me. So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
And so a lot of times when I'm doing these readings, I'm just like, I'm going to be giving you more than just one start, because I think a lot of people come to these readings saying, oh, I wonder if I'm Pleiadian, or I'm wondering if I'm this. And it's like, no, you've been a lot of things. I mean, I'm just trying to pinpoint the star systems that maybe had the biggest influence on their soul evolution. So those are the ones, because I only usually have like a little bit over an hour with these folks, so so I don't want to get into every little, incarnation. That would be too much. But I try to do the highlights, like, okay, these are the systems that have had the most influence on you, so but yeah, I would say for the most part, I would say there's probably more star seeds on the planet during this timeline that we're in right now on planet Earth than there ever has been in the history of planet Earth, with maybe the exception of Lemuria or Atlantis. But there's a lot of star seeds, and a lot of us, because when we incarnate on Earth, because Earth is so low dimensional, it's third dimension. That's the lowest dimension you can be without being a flat piece of paper, so that's two-dimensional. But so we go through this heavy veil of forgetfulness, so we forget a lot. And we choose to incarnate here knowing that we'll forget. So I think a lot of us kind of leave like little spiritual breadcrumbs on our journey to help remind us, like, hey, I'm not really from here, and I'm here to accomplish a mission, so I need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, and we don't come
So
alone, right?
yeah, exactly, yeah. So but a lot of us forget, so then it takes us like half a lifetime to try to remember. Like, hey, I'm a multidimensional being. I'm not just an Earth human. I'm playing an Earth human role right now, but I'm actually been in a lot of other systems. So and all of that contributes to, I guess, the tapestry of who I am as a person. So I would say that's the main reason why a lot of people will come to me for an Akashic reading, is to try to remember, who they are and why they choose to be here during this time. I mean, because Earth is a crazy place. I don't know. It's a crazy planet.
Yeah, the melting pot of melting pots.
Yeah, it's a lot of duality consciousness here, So, and a lot of us came from realms that were unity consciousness. So this is a very different experience for a lot of us.
Yeah, and it can feel tough. So let me ask you, I want to share a couple stories of my own, but
Okay.
for that, let me ask you: could you describe this this first ship, or it was the same ship both times? So could you describe this ship and the Arcturians in particular, like
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
what what their aspect is? I have an idea, but I wanna share a similar kind of experience that I had,
Okay.
and yeah, I just wanna.
Yeah, I'll be happy. Yeah, I'm sorry I kind of glossed over the details because
No, it's okay.
sometimes I feel like, well, we have limited time and I don't want to get bogged down into all the details of because there was a lot of details to the story, um, but as far as the ship itself, it it was comprised of light. I mean, well, I think what shocked me first about the ship was that it didn't look metallic. Like a lot of times when you watch sci-fi movies, like Star Wars, Star Trek, all these movies, the ships are all oftentimes depicted as being very metallic and very mechanical.
Like high
This
tech
ship that I was
technology.
on was not mechanical at all. It was very very fluid, very organic. It was comprised of light, some sort of plasma-like material that gave some sort of structure to the ship, but it was not any materials I've ever seen on planet Earth. So I really don't have much words to describe how it was, but you could tell it was a craft, but it was just very organic. It kind of shifted and changed, and it seemed like the ship itself had kind of a sentience about it, like it had an intelligence, because it was directing me to certain locations, without me even asking anything. I was just being directed into, going into certain locations. And the Arcturian beings that I encountered, they looked pretty much like the classical Arcturians that maybe Dr. Norman Milanovich described in We the Arcturians, which is a really awesome book if you guys are interested in Arcturians. Uh, but at the time, I wasn't even really aware of Arcturian beings. I didn't know that much about them. I mean, maybe I heard the word here and there, but these beings were smaller. But because they had such huge auras, their auras were so big, they seemed very large, but it was their auras. And you have to kind of keep in mind that these beings are higher dimensional beings. So when I was trying to look at them, I couldn't see anything at first. It was because their auras are so bright, and then the auras are comprised of colors I've never seen before. But then as I was glancing them through the periphery, I would be able to see what they looked like. And they had the larger heads, the big eyes. Their eyes had pupils and irises. Their bodies looked kind of small. I mean, as far as I could tell. So they were very small, thin looking beings. But they didn't look very alien-like. I mean, they had maybe more refined features. Skin tone was different than a gray alien. But I wasn't afraid because these beings just emanate all this love energy. I mean, they just have all this love, acceptance, peacefulness, tolerance, so you can't help but feel very comfortable around them. And they are very telepathic. So I remember as I was formulating my first question, I was kind of trying to figure out, like, do they speak English? Do I speak English to them? And they were just like answering my questions even before I could even finish them in my head, um, so that was my experience of these extraterrestrial beings. And the ship was amazing. I mean, there was technology on board the ship I've never seen before. I mean, not even in sci-fi movies. It was just, I don't even have words for just how magnificent the ship was. In the room that I was in with the Arcturians, there was kind of like a holographic sphere that they were using to illustrate some of the concepts they were talking about, or or answering some of my questions, so, and the sphere, when we're in it, it felt like you were having that experience, so it kind of felt like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just seeing this movie. It felt like you were in there, so if they were talking about, oh yeah, we're from Arcturus. I mean, they would show like a star map, and you were like in the middle of space. I mean, it was really amazing, so I'm kind of curious to hear your experience, to see, correlate that with mine, to see, what the just kind of compare notes, I guess, so um but yeah, it's a, yeah, because that's how, I guess that's how I knew that because I couldn't, never in a million years, I don't have that great of an imagination to make up something like that, so to me, it was like, oh gosh, this must be real, and when you're in the higher dimensional realms, details are really sharp. Like in comparison, 3D looks very dull, like even just you and me being here right now, it looks very dull compared to being in the higher realms, where the details are ultra sharp and the colors are more brilliant. I call it a hyper reality, like you're in, like it's more real than real. That's how it feels like.
Yeah. There's this term hyperspace. It kind of,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I call it hyper reality,
yeah.
but yeah.
As you were talking, I started looking through some of my old, not old, but this is from 2021.
Okay.
I got so okay. Part of my background, as I was kind of alluding at the start, is
Mm-hmm.
I also studied Akashic Records readings.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the process when I started studying was um, doing a kind of a scan of your chakras.
Mm-hmm.
In each reading, you would look at one of the chakras and ask several different questions to start harmonizing or healing or yeah, getting everything into a better order, let's say.
Oh yeah.
Eventually, you would reach a part where you would start asking questions about your soul and the origin of your soul, etc. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the confirmations you know, in this kind of work, it's very hard to know, okay, how true is what the information I'm getting. You mentioned, is this my imagination? Is it, something I'm
Oh
making
yeah,
up?
totally. Yeah.
In one of the conversations, uh, the message that my soul is from the Taurus constellation
Hmm.
came
Yeah,
to
I picked
me.
that up about you right away, actually.
Wow.
So,
When
I was
that
like, oh,
message
I bet you he's from Pleiades, or one of those places in the Taurus
when that
constellation.
message came to me,
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know. So before that message came to me, sorry,
yeah.
I've always had a kind of when looking into this stuff, the place with the most affinity for me was the Pleiades, and when that
Hmm.
information came, I was like, Taurus, okay, whatever. Then I went to look in the internet, and it
Hmm.
turns out the Pleiades and the Taurus constellation is kind of the same thing, or the seven
Yeah,
sisters
totally.
is what forms the Taurus constellation, what we call Taurus. And then
Yeah,
with
exactly. Yeah.
confirmation, it was wow. So that's why I've always felt this affinity for the Pleiades. You know, it turns out to
Yeah, no, when I
mutual
when I
affinity.
first I don't know, this is kind of weird. I had this ability of reading frequency, so when I connect with people, sometimes I get, immediate downloads about, their origins. And when I connected with you on Instagram, I was like, oh, this guy seems like a Pleiadian starseed. I just
Wow.
got that I don't know, that intuitive hit, I guess. Yeah, I think when a lot of people first start to learn how to read the Akashic records, they question, they second guess themselves a lot. They're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if this is real. I don't know if, I'm just making it up. And, what I always say is that, if you're getting a very firm download about something, it's probably right on. I mean, even as crazy as it might sound, because otherwise you wouldn't be receiving this information if you weren't ready to receive it. So but I can relate to what you said about questioning yourself when you're in the records, because here on earth we're taught not to trust our intuition. We're taught like everything has to be real logical. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we have to realize that if we're getting an intuitive hit on something, it's probably real. So I think the fact that you got an intuitive hit on your connection with the Taurus constellation, and you may have had more incarnations just in the Pleiades. You might have had an incarnation in Aldebaran or the Hyades or Apollonia or any of the other systems. That the Taurus constellation is huge. I mean, it's a big constellation. It's got a lot of stars. The Pleiades is just one cluster in the Taurus. But it's cool that you had a connection with that. But anyway, was there a question connected with that, or?
Yeah. So let me trace my steps. So
Yeah,
I
sorry,
got
I
I
didn't
got
mean to
no.
intersperse myself, but
I love the free conversation and going everywhere
yeah,
with the
no, I
conversation.
figured. No, I just wanted to confirm your hit on the Pleiades because that's what
Yeah.
I got to. But
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. So
yeah,
um, I got that information, which was a confirmation to my previously held intuition of the Pleiades as something that resonated with me,
yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
and that was amazing. Then, so yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that one. I was looking into one of my here we go, yeah, and
Oh, gotcha.
at,
Oh, yeah,
at
you
one
got a little
time
being there. Yeah.
at one time I got this like visual
Mm-hmm.
impression when I was um, what context is this? So yeah, this was continuing with my own soul Akashic Records readings. I connected with these beings, and this image came, and I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to see if this was maybe the Arcturians, but from the description it doesn't really seem exactly like it.
No, it
It's
does
not
look
that
like the Arcturians. No, it does.
it does.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, I would say that looks
I
pretty
can show it
Arcturian.
again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would say that's what I saw. Yeah, it's very similar. It's just I kept seeing like these big auras around them. So it was hard for me to look at them directly. So I had to kind of like sneak glances, on the periphery of my eye to kind of, but no, they looked like that. They had the big heads, kind of the bigger eyes, um, three fingers, the classical, Arcturians, that Dr. Milanovic described in her books, and other people have described. I think David K. Miller also wrote quite a few books about the Arcturians. So, if people are interested in the Arcturians, he's also has a series of books about them. But no, I think your drawing is really awesome. It's
another
right on.
Another part of the confirmation for myself is you've
Yeah.
mentioned a few authors. I have no idea about any of them.
The star systems. Yeah.
I've never looked, because as I was saying before, it kind of felt too woo-woo for me. I never looked very
Gotcha.
deeply into
Yeah.
it, even though I had some intuitions or whatever. But at the same time, that helps my confirmations, as getting information of things I have no idea about.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
For some reason, the information I get from this, and maybe it can also connect and correlate.
Yeah.
A kind of a phrase that I got is that they are from the eagle and the swan, something like that. So maybe that has something to do with Arcturus. I don't know.
Oh, the Eagle constellation is Aquila, which is actually located close to Galactic Center in our galaxy. So I have a star map. You guys can't see it on my wall here, but yeah, Aquila's on the star map, and the Swan constellation is Cygnus, which is Cygnus is located right next door to Lyra, which I call the home of human consciousness, because that's where the human races began in our galaxy. So, and actually the human template is, I think, prevalent throughout the universe, throughout multi-universes. It's a template that Source seems to like. The two arms, torso, two legs. Yeah, star shaped. Yeah. So what they call the Adamic Karman template. So Source was just creating human beings in our galaxy to look like the template, so we all follow kind of a similar template. And even when I was on board the starship I was surprised to see that most of the beings, even though there was various races of beings on board the ship, most of them had a humanoid, more or less, appearance, so I didn't see crazy octopus looking beings, like you see on Star Wars, or, some crazy sci-fi movie. I saw beings that more or less looked like us, but with variations, so I think that's a very common template. But yeah, it was, and now I'm trying to get back on track here myself, but yeah, I would say that's very much on point, with your journey as well. So I'm kind of curious, I guess, to know why you decided to pursue training in the Akashic Records. Was it because it was part of your spiritual journey, or you were curious, or?
Yeah, it was something that just kind of popped out. I had been interested, and I had gotten a reading for myself from somebody else.
Yeah, gotcha.
A few years before. And then eventually a friend of mine that's on a spiritual journey as well, eventually she just contacted me and told me that she was starting a new group of teaching, Akashic Records leaders, teaching, what's the, I'm looking for the word in English, sorry, like teaching a teacher's course, or a reader's course, right? So
gotcha. Okay.
Other people to read for themselves and for others, right?
So yeah, very cool.
Different levels, etc.
Yeah.
And she got in contact with me, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm super interested. So it was something that dropped on my lap, as they would say.
Oh yeah, no, it
And
sounds
I was
really
so
awesome.
interested for so long that when it came, it was like, oh yeah, sure, I want to try that. And
Yeah,
it
totally.
was such a beautiful experience to learn that, to learn, and all the introspection and the learning about oneself that you do during those courses and in the time after is just fantastic. And the stuff you
Yeah.
learn from others, about
Mm.
yourself, and from reading to other people, you get kind of small glimpses of of,
Of your own information
of
too.
your
Yeah.
own, and of this more let's say also the galactic thing, or the more general
Yeah,
perhaps
the
of
higher realms
humanity,
and
you
the
know
bigger story.
from
Yeah,
from getting,
totally.
for example, past life
Yeah.
information of somebody. You get the context of that past life, and you realize, oh wow, this happened in humanity's history or something like that, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
also so
totally.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think what's exciting about doing Akashic Records readings, especially Galactic Records, is you get new information all the time. I mean, you see stuff that, wow, I never realized this happened, or you see like connections between things, like, oh, there's a connection between what happened in Cygnus, which is the Swan constellation, with what happened in, say, Lyra, for
Mm.
instance, so you see kind of relationships between certain events, which is, or why was there the Orion Wars? What started that? So what, and so there's just correlations to a lot of different things, which you get deeper and deeper nuances into. So that's why I still do this work. I haven't gotten bored with it, because even though I've done thousands of Akashic readings, since I would say 2014. I still see new information all the time, and I'm learning too. So I always tell my clients, I'm learning along with you.
Mm.
I'm just here facilitating the process. So I'm here learning, new things as well. It's because I certainly don't know it all.
Yeah.
But
And the second story that I wanted to share,
okay,
that correlates with your experience in the Arcturianship, or in the ship.
yeah,
So I had this experience, which was, it was an experience assisted by DMT. So it
yeah. Oh
wasn't
wow,
just
okay,
something spontaneous. It was more something that I searched for, and
yeah,
also it was something that I had been researching a lot for a very long time. And eventually, a friend of mine called me and he told me, "Oh, hey, I got this," and I was like, "All right, cool, I'm gonna do it." The
yeah,
context is the story of the whole context is a long story that we can talk about another time. But it's something that also came to me. Okay, and so I had this experience where, so I was sitting on a bed, and I did the three toques, and
yeah.
I went,
Gotcha. Yeah.
I lay, as I was laying back onto the bed, and falling on my back, laying on my back.
Mhm.
I closed my eyes, and the whole reality was changed, or swapped
Mhm.
by this white space.
Mhm.
That the first thing that I saw was, right in front of me, there was this very tall being. It was white, but the
Mm.
interesting thing about it is that it seemed like it was kind of robotic, or maybe
Mm.
wearing this kind of exoskeleton, or of some kind.
Oh,
It was
interesting. Okay.
it was white, and no facial features,
Mhm.
except it had kind of like the what would you call this, the indentations or whatever, of what would be the eyes and the
Oh,
nose.
yeah, gotcha. So kind of like a little imprint of where the eyes might have been,
Yeah,
or
kind
yeah,
of like mannequins, sometimes in
yeah,
shopping centers. It kind of
yeah.
looked like that, but with the different joints
Mhm.
connected with a kind of black uh, material or whatever. So it has
Yeah.
all the movement in fingers, arms, elbows, etc., the hips, the legs. And it was a very tall being, maybe, I don't know in feet, but it's like 3 meters tall. So
Mm.
over 6 feet, taller
Oh,
than
yeah, for sure.
taller
Yeah.
than any human could be. So
Mhm.
um, and it was in front of me, extending its hand towards me, like,
Mhm.
I'm still to this day not sure if it was giving me something or if it was like extending its hand so that I would grab it and get up. So because I got totally distracted by the rest of the stuff that I saw.
Yeah, gotcha.
When I looked to the right, I saw this other being exactly like it. It was sitting on what was like a wall, a white wall. There was a hole in the wall, a circle, and it was just sitting very like chilling, kind of reading a book or something like a book. And eventually this creature got up and left, and the hole in the wall just closed on itself.
Oh,
And
wow.
this resonates with what you told about your own
Yeah.
story of the ship kind of having a certain kind of organic intelligence of some kind.
Of some sort. Yeah,
And
exactly.
another interesting aspect about their appearance and the ship is the ship and them, they all had the same, this white appearance, that you know how this like fiberglass, white fiberglass, or kind of iPods and that kind of technology, the look that it has, like very slick and just white and reflective and kind of transmits a kind of sense of like purity or something like that.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
ship
Yeah.
and their bodies were made of the same kind of white material, white glass, fiber glass, something like that. I don't know what
Yeah.
material to
Yeah,
really.
it's kind of plasma-like, but not. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe because it's not really plastic, or it's like it's like a material that you just don't see here on Earth, at least not yet. But
Yeah. Kind of like, right? So
yeah,
the phones that we use today,
like an iPad or
yeah,
an
something
iPhone.
like that. And
Yeah.
it had the white and the black, but
Oh, wow.
mostly white. And
Yeah.
it felt like a kind of exoskeleton or a suit because it had this in the joints, it had this a little bit of black, as if it had some kind of leather or whatever.
Or
I don't know.
something underneath it that kind of
Yeah.
held it together. Yeah.
Kind of like,
Yeah.
Beetles. Yeah, beetles. They have
Yeah,
their
beetles.
shell,
Yeah.
but they also have a softer skin or
Yeah,
whatever. So
like a
similar to that.
internal. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. That's
And
really cool.
after this, I again I got distracted by something else, because
Mhm.
behind these two characters that were in first plane, let's say, behind
Yeah.
them, I could see hundreds and hundreds of these same beings walking back and forth, left to right and right to left, on a kind of um, on, I don't even know what to call it, a kind of on
Like a
another floor.
conveyor or I
Yeah,
don't
kind
know.
of like a conveyor belt or
Conveyor.
something
Yeah,
like
like
that,
a conveyor. Yeah.
that seemed to be like on a lower floor of the ship.
Hmm.
And they were going back and forth, and all of them had kind of like iPads, and they were all like doing important things,
Oh, wow. Very
like
cool.
as if it felt like what they were doing had something to do with controlling the ship or where it moved and stuff like that. So it was like
Yeah,
a
that's
connection
really,
between
very
the beings
cool.
and the ship. And behind them, then I saw this giant window,
Hmm.
and through the window, all that I could see was blackness and dots, white dots like the
Hmm.
stars, right?
Like the
So
stars.
eventually,
Yeah.
immediately, I mean, I was like, okay, so I guess I'm on a ship. But
That's really cool. What a great DMT
feeling,
experience.
the
Wow.
biggest feeling that I got from that experience was
Yeah.
that everything is already here. It's not like, okay, I was transported. No, it's more like frequency or dimension shifting, and
Oh, totally. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are somewhere that is already present here, and you
Oh,
just
yeah. No,
look
it's
at it.
all interconnected. It's
Yeah.
all, I think a lot of people think that, oh, um, if I'm in a different dimension, I'm going to be someplace else. But there's dimensional layers that are within the same space. It's just that when you shift dimensions, things look different but you're still in the same space. So like let's say if you're shifting into the fourth dimension, you'll start seeing things that maybe you don't see in the third dimension. And then if you go into the fifth dimension, then you start seeing more things that are maybe not very visible in the fourth dimension. So, but it's all within the same space. It's just that we don't see it when we're in the third dimension.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of this exists and there's multi-dimensional layers even here on Earth.
Yeah,
So
another way that I explain it, or another kind of understanding I got, is that
yeah.
the infinity and the point are the same thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Totally.
might,
Yeah.
it's like it's both somewhere else and here at the same time, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times when I do Akashic readings, sometimes I can tap into alternate dimensional lives that people are currently having in addition to this lifetime, and why they're having that experience, or what's the connection. And a lot of times I'm trying to explain to them that you're not in a different location. You're in the same location, but you're just in a different dimension. So things look really different, but
You know what I'm
it's
getting
the
now
same location.
is that physically you could like get on a ship and move and
Yeah.
eventually reach this place, but
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
experientially it's here and it's now.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's physically you could be somewhere else, but experience. But at the same time, you know, I didn't feel like a teleportation, and I knew I was totally conscious that I was lying on the bed, but I was there at the same time. You know, it was both things.
Yeah.
And what it felt is that both spaces were co-located or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the experience I had on board the ship, where my physical body was still in the bed. I was sleeping, but my consciousness was someplace else. So probably very similar to the experience you had. But thank you for sharing those stories. That's really interesting. No,
Yeah.
I love hearing these stories because it just confirms, all these experiences that we're all having, that this is all really real. It's not stuff that we're just
Mhm.
making up, or they're all real experiences. So, and I think there's a multitude of aspects of ourselves that we have yet to explore,
Mm.
so which is going to be, I think, we're going to have more and more of these experiences, I would say, probably in the next few years. I think it's going to,
Mm.
reality as we know it is currently shifting and changing. And
Mm.
it's not going to be uncommon to have these types of experiences. Like you and I were kind of like the forerunners, but in a few more years, there's going to be a lot of us that'll have these kind of experiences. So what you said before about, telling people, hey, it's not too late. It's never too late.
Mhm.
It's not like there's an expiration date. I mean, so really cool.
Yeah, it feels
Any other
like
questions or anything else?
we're blooming. It's kind of
Yeah,
comes to
exactly.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are reaching the around an hour or so.
Yeah.
I would I would suggest that maybe we make a short break here. We can take a bathroom
Okay.
break or whatever. And
Okay.
I'm amazed that I wanted to talk to you about galactic history, and I think we basically mentioned nothing about it, just a few hints. But maybe on the second half we can get a little bit more into that and
Yeah,
get
we'll get deeper into it with the
yeah, like
second
an
part.
overview of like where where we've been, what's been going on, and in that sense, kind of understanding why we chose to be here today. And
Oh yeah,
a
totally.
few other
Yeah.
topics that I would like to explore is the idea of simulation theory and how that maybe connects with the
Hmm.
experience we're having here. And I would share then another experience that I had recently that connects to that, and maybe you can
Okay.
validate or just give your own take on that.
Okay.
Also, the ideas of alternate timelines and parallel universes, which we've been kind of hinting at as well, spiritual helpers and guides. So yeah, that's just kind of like a teaser for people to
Okay. Sounds good.
stay
All
to
right.
stay there or to click next or whatever to go to the following video. And I want to thank you, Debbie Solaris, right now for being here, for your time that you've taken so far. Where can people find you? Please go ahead and share your social links and your website, etc.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. So if people want to reach out to me, they could reach out to me through my website. That's probably I would say the most direct way of contacting me would be on my website, which is debbiesolaris.com. So just like it's spelt, DEBBIESOLARIRS.com. And you can also find me on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. There is a lot of fake accounts on Instagram that are pretending to be me. So So I wouldn't suggest Instagram
That's
unless
like
you
a
want to.
crazy invasion of the body snatchers or something. It's
I know
so
it is like
dumb.
it
Yeah.
does feel like that.
Yeah.
I'm not really real happy with social media right now, but I'm also on Facebook, so you can find me. If you're a Gaia subscriber, if you just do a search on my name, you'll find episodes that I've been on. So I've been on several Beyond Belief shows, Open Minds with Regina Meredith, and I'll be on Deep Space in the next season that's going to be airing. So you'll see me there as well. So that's pretty much how you can find me.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I recommend everybody getting an Akashic Records reading. You're still doing those, yeah?
I'm still doing them, but honestly, I have thousands of people on my waiting list.
Right.
So it's, I mean, I would say right now, unless you're already on the waiting list, it's probably going to be difficult to get on the list, but I'm still doing them. So,
Awesome.
so I don't know, things might change in the future and you might have an opportunity. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been kind of a crazy journey with this Akashic thing. I mean, people are waking up and everybody wants an Akashic reading. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah. In case you don't get the fantastic reading from Debbie, you can talk to me and I can do a reading as well. It's
Oh
something
yeah,
that
no, there you go. So
I'm also extremely
now,
passionate about that.
yeah, no, I would highly suggest going to someone else if you get the opportunity. I am going to be teaching a Galactic Akashic reading course this year. So if you're interested in learning to do what Rafa and I are doing, and I'll be teaching it from the galactic perspective. So we're going to learn a lot about galactic history in this course. So, and we're currently wrapping up, just we've been working on this for months. So we're currently wrapping up the course, but we're going to be offering it probably in April of this year. So if you subscribe to my website, you'll get information on it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, you can find me on Instagram and message me. It's at Atman Rafa. And I don't think there's any copycats of my own because I'm not that popular over there. So yeah, I like it for messaging with people and having conversations with the community. And there's also the Patreon that you can join if you're interested in helping out and assisting me with this process, with this project of the podcast. And well, you can also find my music on Bandcamp. It's also atmanrafa.bandcamp.com. It's kind of like ambient meditation music, and sometimes it gets a little bit amazing and crazy. And yeah, I really love it. And I'm also making some lo-fi hip hop beats now. I'm encouraging into that and creating an album with that. So I don't know. I'm exploring all the musical landscape.
It's
It's
really
something.
awesome because sound frequency healing is going to be the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's the next big healing modality that's coming to the forefront. So it's awesome that you're involved with that.
I've done in the past many sound healing sessions with lots
Yeah.
of people, and
Yeah.
I've gotten some amazing and beautiful feedback. But this is something that I did physically and in person, And since all the craziness that's been going on, it's something that I haven't done too much of recently. But yeah, so you can get in touch with me if you're interested, and yeah, I would really appreciate it. Any financial support for the show would be great. And let's just close it over here. Thank you everybody so much, and we'll see you on the second half. All right, bye.